everybody. This is Nafis Farrell, the representative of Benny Banks, here with my co-host,
Coach Gaines.
This is Bank with Benny podcast. We have a special guest, and we appreciate her for coming on and sharing part with her knowledge and her experience as far as marketing her dream. This is receipt number 1. We'll be talking about marketing dream. We'll be dealing with Tiffany Williams, and you might know her as the owner of Bellargo.
Miss Bellargo herself.
Exactly. And she's going to express, I'll let her do it. Pass over it to her to let her explain a little bit about herself and stuff like that, so we can get into the conversation our co-host is driving to.
Well, first off, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. I am Tiffany, the owner of Bellargo Piarge, which is one of the first streetwear brands to come out of Philadelphia, tri-state area. It will be actually 18 years. My brand turns 18 in March of this year. Thank you. That just still always feels weird for me to say, because I don't think initially I went into it to actually build a brand. I just love fashion, and it kind of started off as a hobby. So I would have never imagined still being here 18 years later, but here I am. So
it's definitely a proof of your sincerity.
Yes,
sure.
I love this is a labor of love. Bellargo is my baby. But over the I'll say about 5 years, it's about 5 years now, I have now kind of dabbled and enjoyed the back end of fashion. So although I still have the brand both online and brick and mortar, I have now moved into the coaching and consulting space.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that has been a
Coach Tiff.
It
was a team of coaches.
Yeah,
a team of coaches.
So yeah, that's what I've been up to more recently.
No doubt.
So so tell us a little bit about your journey. How do you feel your brand has grown from the time that you conceived it? What things what milestones have you felt like you've accomplished in these past 18 years?
18 years. Well, I started out of the trunk of my car selling just t-shirts. I had one design, one logo, different colorways, and I literally would go from neighborhood to neighborhood after work. I got off of work at 5, I'm out. Sometimes I'm out at 2 o'clock in the morning selling t-shirts. That honestly went on for close to 8 years before I felt like the courage to be like, okay, I'm going to leave my job and this is like, I'm going to pursue my passion full time. So I came out of work in 2012 to open my first space, which
Congratulations.
Tawfiq and the guys designed my first 2 stores actually. My first 2 locations.
She was our first client too, so all right.
Dope.
It goes both ways. We haven't had a official retail client as the group that we were designing with. You were first. We did Abdul Wali's store to kind of like see what it looked like, and then by the time we did your store, we were like, okay, we're ready to go into retail design.
Yeah, and that was one of my favorite stores.
Would you say during the 8 years, would you say it was a novelty? Did you have a name? Was Bellargo?
It was huge. I mean, I feel like towards the end of those 8 years forced me to come out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
I think a lot of times what I see, especially with like new entrepreneurs, that job is still your safety net, and sometimes people will be so scared to let go, but that's what keeps you stuck. For me, it became a point where my demand of the t-shirts were so high, like my phone was ringing all day at work. My office, my desk was right across from my boss's office. So I'm constantly sneaking texting, or I'm getting up every 5 minutes on bathroom breaks to answer the calls. And I'm not going to even say it was so much of the money, but I did look up and it's like I'm making more in these little hours after work than I'm making working for somebody else. 2, I'm helping build somebody else's dream versus mine. And the one great thing I would say coming out of corporate America, like making the transition fully to entrepreneurship, it really forced me to turn it from a hobby to a business. Because in the 8 years, I felt like it was just hustle. It was all hustle. I didn't really have any, business formation. I was incorporated from the time we started the brand.
That term you use, business formation.
Yes.
Okay.
I
That's
didn't
a
have
very,
structure.
very solid term. That key word that we should listen out.
Business formation.
Yeah, business formation. But I mean, a lot of people will start a business, they get their LLC or however they choose to incorporate, and they think they're in business. And I went 8 years of having I had a corporation at that time. I started as a C corp. I went 8 years of that, but I wasn't filing taxes. I wasn't doing any budgeting. I'm just buying shirts, selling the shirts, buying more shirts, but I'm not even really keeping track of inventory of like how my money is flipping. Is the pricing of my shirts make sense for, you know, like the cost? I'm not doing any of that. But when I opened the store, they wanted to see like paperwork. Have you did it? Where's your tax returns? You've been in business, have you filed taxes?
You have
a business bank account. I didn't have any of that. Luckily, I had very supportive parents that really saw how hard I was working, really believed in my dream, and they co-signed. That's key. My mom co-signed for my first store because I didn't have any paperwork to support it. I had the money, but there was just no paper trail. And from that day forward is when I'm like, okay, this is a business, and I had to start taking it serious.
So you heard right here from Ms. Bellargo herself explaining to you guys, just because you get an LLC or you get a corporation does not mean you're in business. With the government, you're in business when you file taxes. You're in business when you keep track of your inventory. So she just laid out some good key gemstones right there for us to take.
So so we mentioned some dates. So now we just told our age, right?
Yeah, we did.
So I think we've been able to experience marketing and business, I guess pre-digital and
Yes.
post-digital. So my question to you would be the pros and cons from traditional word of mouth versus digital. And what is your take on business pre and post-COVID?
So I have pre-digital and post-digital. I have it's pros and cons on both sides. So pre-digital, I felt like it was more authentic. Hand in hand, I got to know people on a different. You're more personable with your customer experience, because and you have to be like whatever you say you were. You really had to be that, because this is a face-to-face, physical, in-person experience. Now, social media makes it easier. It's a lot of fluff, I'll say. You can pretty much show up and be whoever it is that you want to be if you're intentional about it. That's a gift and a curse. The gift is I love social media for entrepreneurs because it gives us a platform. You can be in front of millions of people in a second. The curse, though, that I think is, again, it gives you a platform to be in front of millions of people, and I think a lot of times they make entrepreneurship just look like you wake up, get an LLC, and you're famous overnight and it's a success.
All you gotta do is.
Yeah, all you gotta do is. And
how to be successful.
Yeah, and I always tell people, like, a lot of these people they're showing you highlight reels of a story, but they're not showing you, they're not showing you, the days where, I mean, in business, and I have 18 years, I've had great, runs of huge success, but then there's also some days of, is the lights gonna stay on? Is we gonna pay this rent? Is we about to get evicted out the store? Nobody is showing you those days.
No one is posting their failures, right?
No, and they're showing you I feel like sometimes people are showing you a five-year journey in like a minute or a 2-minute preview.
Oh, recap.
Yes. So they're showing you the start and they're showing you the success, but where's the years that went in between?
So according to you, the curse will be the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it's a
pretty
lot
much
of
of success. It doesn't give you the ins and outs of success. It just give you this fast track, and you think that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think it made a lot of people. The other thing too is a lot of people have become so dependent on social media and they become lazy, and not really wanting to put in the old-fashioned footwork. I love the fact that I understand the marketing it took for pre-social, and I'm still willing to get out here and do the footwork. I tell a lot of my clients now. A lot of my clients have been in business for like years. They don't even have an email list. I'm like, if Instagram goes down, because this is not a platform that you own.
Exactly.
This is something that we're experiencing. If it goes down a day or tomorrow, and you having the biggest sale of your life for your brand, how are you going to get in contact with your audience? You
Nice.
own that
Interesting.
audience.
I was taking people's names and numbers down with paper. I'm still black and white.
Right.
I
Because
still
even our
take
phones
business
can go
cards.
down.
I don't give business cards out as much as I used to because I've gotten comfortable with just giving you my Instagram. But
She's making some real valid points.
she's making some really good points. This
Yeah.
is good. So my next question would be along the same lines of post and pre
Oh, you asked me
pandemic, because a lot of new entrepreneurs, they said more people quit their jobs last year historically than any other time. And it wasn't necessarily just because of the pandemic, but I think that there was a lot of incentive
From the
It
pandemic.
was.
from the pandemic, people to get their own businesses.
It was.
So I think you spoke to it a little bit when you talked about the fluff of social media, instant brands, instant heritage, instant story. But now, it got real. The stimulus is not here. You really have to have a service or a point of view. So, do you notice a difference in the marketplace pre or before? Have you felt a difference? I mean, what is your take on that as a timeline?
So, one, I felt like the pandemic, it definitely forced people to be more creative, and you had to learn how to pivot, because what life was prior to the pandemic has completely changed. I also think it gave us a good idea of a good glimpse at what businesses are going to be like viable, what businesses were like pandemic proof. There's some people, there's some industries that had very minor effects. The pandemic didn't like crush their business. And for once in my whole history of 18 years, I've never seen it this easy to get funding for small businesses. They did a great job of funding, but I know, so again, back to the key of really being on your business, I know so many people that have been in business for years, they didn't have their paperwork straight, they didn't have their business straight, they weren't eligible for, there was tons of funding out here to help you grow your business.
Because they didn't have the paperwork?
And because they didn't have the paperwork, they couldn't provide proof that they had
Couldn't take
benefits,
advantage.
and couldn't take advantage of a lot of funding that so many people were able to do. So I think it was kind of like a wake-up call that anything can happen, and you really have to be prepared. During like midway through the pandemic, of course, when the funding was good, anytime the government, they put money around, it works on both ways. We got money to build businesses, but a lot of that money also helped businesses sustain. There was a lot of money circulating. Now, we are still in the pandemic, but the money is also. It has slowed up business still for, I feel like, a lot of industries. Today I just was on a live earlier, even like the supply chain crisis, where people don't really understand or grasp how big that is, because it's affecting all industries. Food, the shelves are empty when you're going to these markets.
Exactly.
For fashion, I know like it's a cotton shortage. It's freight has gone up almost 10 times the amount. So people, if you're getting
Shocking
manufacturing
supply
stuff right, that's overseas, or even like bigger brands or big business, it's hard. My whole fall collection had to go to spring, because just like for air freight is astronomical.
I made the same
They
exact,
ship it
I
by
made the
sea.
same exact decision for my brand, and I even started to not look towards all the way, far east. Looking at South American countries,
Yep.
really looking at doing things here in America.
Yes.
Search and rescue saved my life that way. We were in the mall, Sheltonhead Mall. We had the camouflage store.
Yes.
We went through it.
That's my first retail account.
We were the first streetwear store
Yes,
to
they were.
carry one of the first streetwear brands coming out of Philadelphia.
Yes.
And we did really good. When we were selling Bellargo, that was doing better than any of the other brands that we were bringing in. We were bringing in Scotch and Soda. We had Super Dry. We had Cult of Individuality. We had Japanese brands. We brought it in. But when it was tight and there was nothing selling and everybody was like, they didn't really know what they were buying, Bellargo was still, it kept the lights on.
That's
So
nice.
that was Kenya and I, we both, we was like, man, get Tiff on the phone, stop playing. and to see how much you've grown since then, and to be a part of your store and to be a part of the whole social movement. We still haven't left marketing yet. Cause I'm looking at, you were part of the party promoting circuit. A lot of those tastemakers were wearing your stuff. They were putting you on their flyers. And that was before social. Again, you were out there, you were going viral before it was a viral.
So I tell people, the thing I did then, I mistakenly was doing influencer marketing without knowing it was influencer marketing.
Okay.
So we didn't have social media, so it wasn't this whole influencer thing.
Right.
But when I dropped Bellargo,
I'm just gonna use my street credit.
when I dropped Bellargo, I knew my goal was to get popular guys. That's what I needed to get in the shirts. And back then we had Nightlife. That was the closest thing. Nightlife Link was the closest
Shout
thing.
out nightlifelink.com.
Shout out to Nightlife. That's who helped me.
Right.
That was the closest thing we had to social media. They would go to all of the cool events, nice party, and if you made it on Nightlife, you were somebody.
You were somebody,
So every
right.
week after a party, you went to Nightlife to see if your picture made it on. I was watching Nightlife, so I knew who was making it. That's who I needed to be in the shirt. So anytime it was events, when I first started, before like people embraced the brand, so want to pay for it, I have great relationships throughout the city. So I, went to people. That's the other thing that I feel like social media has made entrepreneurs lazy. They feel like they can just DM and your interaction is just on social. I had to go to people face to face. Hey, I'm starting this brand. It's the name of the brand. Here's my shirt. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to wear it. And initially it was, even though people was cool with me, it was resistance because Philly is a place where people want to get fly.
How did that make you feel when people was like resisting?
They did it, but it just made me feel like, it made me more determined. It didn't make me want to give up. At first I had no's, but those same no's, I still was still showing up every day. Like, all right, you can't wear this week, or here's the next party, throw this on. And those no's soon became yeses, and the more they became yeses, that's when the brand started to spread. So those same people that was initially telling me no, or two that I was even asking, that became the same people that started calling me like, Tiff, I want to buy this shirt. That's when I started to feel the shift. Like, okay, this is a little more than just me making t-shirts.
Okay.
So now fast forward to social media. You jumped on Instagram before me. You jumped on Facebook before me. You might have done a lot before me, Tiff.
I'm reluctantly just getting over TikTok.
I played with TikTok. I touched it, but I jumped right back out. I couldn't commit to the whole commitment to the culture. Like you really had to get into those challenges, and if you weren't ready for that, don't even play yourself. But yo, you were posting like 3-4 times a day. Okay, me and him were talking about getting off the ground. Like, okay, we gotta buy ads. Do we get the celebrity? What do we do to get more views? And you didn't look left, look right. You went in that store and you posted every single day. So what was on your mind? What was the strategy for that rollout, that digital rollout?
So I'll be honest, when social media first started, I felt like I was lost in the water. I didn't have a real digital strategy. I knew I knew that was the new space that my audience was at, and I needed to show up there.
Right.
But I did not go in with strategy.
Okay.
I will be 100% honest, it wasn't until probably the last 2 years that I really started, like, as I'm watching the curve as social media is continuing to grow and I'm watching like brands, I felt like at first that's how my brand got lost in the water. It was newer, younger brands that's on the scene, and they're like, I would look at product and be like, all right, they stuff is dope, but it's not doper than mine. But where they were killing me at is in marketing. We are in a viral world right now. You can't cheat the marketing. And I am old school, so I came from that place I'm not for this. I'm not the social media person.
It's crazy because there's so much viral that even now rappers is doing the NFTs and stuff like that. So it's like,
even with that's a whole other conversation of where that is about to go. But that, even like the metaverse.
You want to have the NFT conversation?
We
No.
can. The metaverse, I've been telling people, get up on it. That right now is, I don't want the metaverse to be how social media was. I don't want to be on that league. I feel like social media, when that hit,
you want to be ahead of the curve
I
this
was
time.
ahead of the curve. I was lost and I had to find my way in social media.
You know what's
that I want to be ready.
The scene what I'm getting from what she's saying is that you should always be willing to adapt.
You have to.
And in order to be successful, I'm seeing is to just be willing to adapt, not give up because you feel as though you're too old or dinosaurs. You understand?
And adapt authentically. Adapt and still in a way that still feels true to you, and you make it your own. But yes, you have to be. Times change. You have to be willing to grow. It's kind of like when I look at like the artists, and I'm a big hip hop fan, but when I look at like the older rappers, it's still always this debate against them and the younger ones, and you have some older ones that say, "Oh, let them in. Like this is their new way."
Right.
And you have some older ones that's still stuck in their ways,
In their
but
ways.
you have to be able to grow
You have to be able to grow.
and adapt with the times.
And show that you're progressing.
Yes.
I know that she was moving around a lot in New York.
Yes.
It was a rumor. There was a rumor that there was no money in Philly, and I beg to differ. I believe there's money in Philly. I believe there's money everywhere. But I also saw you moving around in New York. So now, what was that like? Did you feel like you were outgrowing Philadelphia and that you needed a bigger marketplace, or were they fanning your flames? Is that where the attention was coming from? Explain, a little bit of what your thought process was from showing that image of Philly nightlife to now I'm out here in New York. I seen a shift.
I don't feel like I was outgrowing Philly, but I feel like Philadelphia sometimes can Philadelphia has this glass ceiling. So I felt like I reached the height of where, at that time, of where I could potentially go here. And it was time for me to expand and spread my wings and open my market up in other places. New York is one of the fashion meccas. So there, the difference that I used to get here, now I love it here. I've got great. Philadelphia has supported me tremendously. There, it was like almost a rebirth though, because it became a time for me. And we were talking off air earlier about freedom, but with like the store in, I think that was 2016. I had the amazing opportunity in late 15. The late great Virgil Abloh had a streetwear program. He had the first like online streetwear program, but you could not just pay for it. He actually they hand selected 300 brands around the country. Bellargo was one that they gave the opportunity to take this program.
Awesome.
So I did. It was a 4-month intensive program, and honestly, it changed my life. His approach and his thought process to fashion was just different than I have ever experienced. But he spent a lot of time on marketing, digital marketing, and really branding, because I felt like at a point in time for me, Bellargo, like what I envisioned Bellargo to be, that's not how my demographic was receiving it. That's not how the customer was receiving it.
Okay.
The brand I was building in my head that's not what was rolling out. So after his course, it made me want to hit the reset button and take a break. So I took a 2-year hiatus from the brand all up. Like we were still doing online, but I closed retail. At that point, I wasn't in retail. Is something me and retail have I fall in and out of love with retail. Some days I love it, and some days it's like
relationship with retail. I don't think brick and mortar will ever be dead.
It won't.
But I do have a love-hate relationship with retail.
Me too. So New York was kind of like, when I got there, I always posted my picture like I call it my happy place.
Okay.
It was like a breath of fresh air. Every time I went there, it recharged my creative battery. Networking there is unmatched. Kind of similar to Atlanta, where people are just really, really willing to extend a hand. Sometimes that's hard, and in between in our city. And then two, I guess just the hustle and bustle. New York is like a really, really fast place.
Okay.
It keeps you on your toes.
All right.
So that was my love for New York. And then through New York, through connections I met there, that's how I honestly started on the back end. I've been teaching in both the New Jersey and Newark School District.
Awesome.
My entrepreneurship program. So I teach two, like one's called Boss Up, that's just like general entrepreneurship. Newark, shout out to their mayor. He's done an initiative. Yes, he's done an initiative where he actually gives students between $1,000 to $2,500 to start a business. They take this elective program. He's gotten the program. I do a full, like how to start your own t-shirt brand called Flip 101 in the schools.
How do anyone get in touch with you if they want to?
So I have, I also have another platform besides my personal Instagram. I have a platform, Bellargo Consulting. On there, I offer coaching, we do master classes. I do tons of free tips every week. I do an Ask Tiffany segment every week if anybody has like business or any business or fashion questions. So you can find me there. And I also have a website, BellargoUniversity.com.
Now, as far as being on the back end versus being on the front end, when you was on the front end when you was doing Bellargo as your brand, now you're on the back end doing teaching, right? Which one is more fulfilling?
currently in this space, I mean, but I still have the brand. Currently in this space though, I do enjoy the back end.
Okay.
At this, I turned 40 last year, so I
Oh,
turned 41
congratulations.
next week. Those years was flying.
Long
But at this age, I started Bellargo, I was 22. So, and I worked. It feels like this feels almost like kind of like my retirement stage. I don't want to say I'm retired, I'm not done. But at this age, I just, success to me is different.
Okay.
So success for me is waking up and having the freedom of choosing what I want to do or where I want to be.
Oh.
And I feel like coaching in the back end gives me that. I just remember this summer I was in Vegas. I had classes. I'm at the pool and I'm still like my students like, hey, I wish I was there with you, but I'm still doing virtual. I'm still doing something I love, but I have the freedom to do whatever else I want to do with my time.
Okay.
So success for me is time. It's
There you go. There you go. You got it from Miss Bellargo right there. Success is freeing up your time. If your time is free, you have reached epitome of success. You reach,
For
her
me.
definition, a version of success.
So we're looking at it getting closer to
Yeah, the last thing I did want to meet you, just to tie in with Benny Banks' podcast. I know that he explained a little bit of it. This podcast is designed to really like inspire others, sort of what you're already doing as a coach and things like that, to live their dreams. Like if they want to go out and, step out in the world and want to be inspired or be motivated. That's normally what this whole thing is about.
Okay.
It's based around a character. I don't know if you know a little bit about the character. The character is Benjamin.
Okay.
B. Banks, Benny Banks, sort of kind of hip, so they call him Benny Banks.
Okay.
1901, 1969. He's an idealist really, so he's not a banker, that's the funny thing. But what he does is he holds up the fact that you're already rich via your ideas. And your bank is pretty much your ideas. If you market your ideas, if you look at your ideas as having value, then you really have something, to work with.
I agree. I mean, now more than ever, especially with social media, and even if people look around, let's think of the coaching space. And Tawfiq alluded to it earlier, like it's how to get rich or how to do this. All you see up and down social media is somebody giving you how to, your information. And it took a long time for me to sit in the space because I was one of those people of, can you be my, and not saying I don't mentor people, but I said,
Right.
can I pick your brain? And then I had to realize, how long, like this knowledge that I'm able to give you, how much did this really cost me? How many
Exactly.
hours of blood, sweat, and tears that I put in to get
Exactly.
this knowledge? So yes, you can pick my brain when it comes at a rate.
Right.
But everybody, I feel like even of not even from that perspective, it's a saying like you got $1 million in your head, you just gotta get it out.
Exactly.
Everybody has something valuable that they can turn,
share.
that they can share, that they
There
can
you
turn
go.
into a business. It's just knowing how to really get it out, put a plan together and make it sellable.
Take it from the thought stage, the idea stage, and then put it into a real
And
action
put it into
plan.
a real action
Into
plan.
a practice.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing I tell people too, the biggest part of branding, shall we say, is that goes hand in hand with social media is just the art of storytelling. You don't sell a product, you sell a solution to a problem. If you can understand who your audience is and tap into something that's missing, or even if you are able to do something that already been done but elevate it and do it better, that's half of the
Half of the battle.
half of the battle right there.
There you go. That was nice.
It's really nice.
You ain't selling a product, selling a solution to a problem. You gotta take that. That's a challenge.
Listen, thank you, coach.
Yeah, we thank Tiff for coming on.
This was
Thank
Even
you,
though this
guys.
is short, we definitely gotta have her back again. Please, guys, go check her out, go support her. Check out on her other page dealing with the coaching. I'm definitely gonna have to look into that as well.
Yeah.
Because
I need
you wanna
catch
you wanna
up.
benefit. You definitely wanna benefit.
Yeah.
My last question to you, and I wanted to get this out because, like you mentioned earlier, social media, the curse of it is that you don't see people failures, right?
Mhm.
And you always see only the fast track success, smoke and mirrors. So what would you say? What was the most valuable lesson to you that you have to part with the followers or with the lookers and the listeners from the conception of your dream, from the moment of your passion that you started Bellargo? What would you say the most valuable lesson you learned throughout this whole 18 years?
I've learned so many lessons, so I don't know if it was the most valuable one, but I would say just in all, one, you can't never judge your success against somebody else's. You don't know what their journey is. You don't know what their backstory is. You don't know how that person got there. So a lot of times I see entrepreneurs feel less than or get defeated by feeling like they should have been somewhere that somebody else is. I always tell people that you possess everything you need to win, but my race and your race may be two different races. And in the words of Nipsey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint.
It's not a sprint.
But for me, I feel people will be like, oh well, she had 18 years, but Bellargo is not at this place. There's some people that didn't reach their peak until 45 years in the game. Everybody's story looks different. So my main thing that I would want to leave people with words of encouragement is just to keep going.
Nice.
Slow and steady still wins the race.
There you go.
It's as long as you don't stop.
Interesting enough, she mentioned it because our first deposit was Nipsey Hussle's dedication. We did it pretty much off his dedication, the lyrics that he had put in there, keep going, being patient, and so forth like that, putting in that time. So that's beautiful.
And Confucius actually has a quote. It says, "No matter how slow you go, don't stop."
Don't stop. There you go. So
thank you so much.
Thank you for banking with Benny.
Thank you.
Anytime we would have you,
No,
to wrap it
I feel
up.
the same way. I appreciate you coming out. This episode of Benny was recorded at the Search and Rescue Squad General Store. Everything you see around is a part of the store's decor, not a set. We're open on the weekends. Tiff and I are both pioneering again.
Yes.
A new neighborhood, a newly gentrifying neighborhood, up and coming neighborhood in Philadelphia called Brewery Town. So between myself and her, Center Stage Abdul Wali, we also have Modern Republic not too far off the street. So in this corridor right here, we're definitely putting it down with art and fashion, and Brewery Town is definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yes, it is.
So welcome, thank you, and you all, if you guys come into this area, definitely check us out. Definitely go check out Bellargo. What's your address?
Our address, how do I just remember? 1344 North 26th Street.
Okay.
That's 26 of Manston.
Okay. And we're here at 3101 West Glenwood Avenue, Search and Rescue Squad. Thank you guys.
That's how I just noticed too. That's dope that we both still ended up right back in the same neighborhood together.
You can sense that, right?
No, it's crazy.
Can you taste it? Are you experiencing it?
Oh,
Let's play
yeah.
out.
Okay. We talk.
That's greatness, my friend. That's greatness that you're tasting.
No, really,
That's greatness
everywhere
that you're
I've been,
experiencing.
we've been like